a good time. Put a smile on your face, yeah. Kimmy Kim and Elation Radio. Even brighten your day and help you through the night. Bringing you good music. Kimmy Kim and Elation Radio. And here's your host, Kimmy Kim.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Elation Radio. Welcome back. This is Mr. Sedric on Relentless Pursuit. Got to thank my sister for bringing us back again for another week. Thank you, Sister Kimmy. Everybody shout out to her for me. Well, here we are, another week gone by. I just asked God to be with us tonight. Tonight, have my the two usual suspects on with me, my partner in crime. That would be Minister Terry or Pastor Terry. And my other partner in crime would be Jason D, as I like to call him. How you gentlemen doing this evening?
Hey, well, sir. How you doing, sir?
Doing all right, man. I just finished up another wonderful week. I got some things accomplished this past week. It was hectic, and I had to kind of lean on my spiritual roots a little bit, if you know what I'm saying. But surviving COVID, waiting to take a test, but everything has been all right. Well, I guess I want to kind of jump right in, gents, if y'all don't mind. Jump right in. I had a topic that I just kind of wanted to talk about a little bit, and y'all, man, this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and it's something that I think over the years I've been kind of, I hate to say sleeping on, but I kind of been sleeping on it. You know what I'm saying? And it's just been, man, it's been something. So thought about it, and I wanted to talk about the reasons why the Black church lacks influence in our communities. And I got to tell you something that's near and dear to my heart. I know I'm going to upset a few people, which I think is good. You know, we upset you and make you to do something else, right? Make you do something different, make you commit a little more. So, and this topic actually for me, it really comes from driving through different neighborhoods, mostly, as we like to say, the black parts of town, and seeing so many churches. You know, thinking about when I grew up in Dallas, so many churches in the black community, and it was so weird. Like we lived in the inner city. You know, I lived in Dallas, in inner city. I lived in South Dallas. I lived in Oak Cliff. I lived in West Dallas for a little while. I lived in different parts of Oak Cliff, shall I say. Then I moved to Pleasant Grove. When I moved to Pleasant Grove back in the 80s, the early 80s, it was suburbia, right? And man, I'm telling you, like where I lived, man, there wasn't a church for at least a mile or two or three. You know, it was a few miles away to get to the nearest church. And it wasn't a church on every corner. We had little strip malls on every corner, and we had a little drugstore on almost every corner. We had a school that was 2 blocks away, but we didn't have a bunch of churches where I lived. We had a few, don't get it wrong, but they were hidden in the community. You would see all the houses, and the churches were in the community. And so as I used to travel back and forth to South Dallas and Oak Cliff and West Dallas, man, there were tons of churches. Like on every 2 or 3 corners, there was a church. And so this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. So I wanted to just get you guys' take on it. I wanted to see if y'all could help us open up the eyes of a few people and kind of make everybody think about this. You know, why isn't the black church more influential in our communities? And I basically wanted to open up the floor for discussion. Either one of you guys have something you want to add? I know you got a point to make here, right?
No, I think it's a great topic. You know, and Sedric, you know where I come from. I think the church should be the pinnacle of the community, and I don't think it's government. I don't think it's business or corporations. I think it should be the church, and it's hard to serve that out when, like you talk about, we don't have the influence, we don't have the participation. And so I think this is a great topic, and it's something we really should talk about because, I truly believe that, it is the job of the church to try to take care of the world. And if we do our job correctly, then we won't need government intervention. We won't need these big corporations coming in. We won't need these other things, it is important that the church has a strong influence and it shapes not just policy but also morality and how we treat people. And I think we see that more and more often. The further we get away from the church influence, the more and more we get the people that don't have the same character or morality and stuff like that. We've gotten to a point now where people will say, "Hey, I don't look for my elected officials to be moral," and it's like, and that it's sad that we've gotten to that point. But I think when you start eroding the influence of the church on a community, that's kind of where we lead to.
So you think that one of the reasons why we don't have that influence that we're looking for is that we've become kind of like society, an amoral organization. I guess that's the word I'm gonna use. Am I correct in that? Because
I would say, like, the power of the churches has been eroded, and I think I won't may go so far as say amoral, but I think we are shaping and shifting some of our morality, some of our views to kind of fit our current culture. So I think in doing so, we've lost some of the power and influence that Jesus built and He wanted us to have.
You said Jesus built and He wanted us to have. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
See, because when I think about that right there, man, I'm telling you, it's like that goes so many different ways to me because I mean, you bring up an interesting point, but I use the term, I say amoral. We've become, sometimes we've allowed people who are morally bankrupt to really be in places in the church where they shouldn't. And it's funny you bring that up, because one of the things that I guess I could sum that up with saying is our leadership pipeline, right? And what I mean by that is that a lot of times in the church, there's a lack of leadership, and anybody who, I get it, anybody can get. I mean, you can teach people to get into the pulpit and to preach a sermon that will have the house up. I mean, just up in a tizzy, right? And they can deliver a word, they can interpret the word, but they ain't training nobody. The next generation is not being trained, right? Like one of the things in leadership we always said is that you should always be training up your your successors, right? And I believe I read a book on that, and it was about the church. We should be training up the next generation to take over, but we're not doing that. What we're doing is we're holding these positions. Time for us to go. There's nobody else to take over. So the person who steps into that leadership role is not very well trained. See, I live under the guise and the idea that leaders are not born. Leaders are made. And I think we have a problem with that in our church sometimes. It's like I want somebody to take over, but I'm so afraid for whatever reason that I can't train them. They just got to learn it on their own. I'm going to put this out in front of them, and then they've got to take it on themselves. And I think one of the reasons that the church is not as influential in our community is that very reason. Now, that's one of the reasons I would give, because, young people, here it is. If you're not training somebody to take over for you, right, what are they doing? Are they just being servants? I mean, it's great. You got to learn how to serve, but that's part of their training, is to learn to serve. But another part of the training too, is to learn how to serve. Does that make sense? Pastor Terry, I know you're all with me. What do you think about that?
Oh, I think that's totally, everything you guys was hitting on is totally correct. One of the things though is for us, our training is the utmost. Yes, I'm here. I'm here. Training is of the utmost importance, and being able to raise up the next generation is the utmost importance. But but one of the things that we run across is, those are the things that we should be doing, but sometimes the people aren't there. When I say not there, I'm talking about not there, physically not there. And so it's kind of like being able to, what's the word I'm looking for? Wow. You want to be able to do those things. You want to be able to raise up and train up and do all the things like what you're saying. But you hit to a roadblock, and it's almost like they're relevant to be able to have them in the building, in the congregation, that are there. The relevance is not there. So basically, what I'm trying to basically say is, to be able to have them come in, the church has got to be more relevant. And what I mean by relevant, I mean that there's things that we need to be about. So if the community is in need of, like, say, for instance, right now, COVID is huge. It would be great if every church was to be a sponsor of a site for everybody to get COVID vaccine. You know what I'm saying? That's making the church relevant because it's meeting a current need, those types of things. So, I mean, I just look at like what our church is doing right now. We're getting ready to have the people come back again to do the health screenings. And they already got a full day of like 80 some odd people are going to be coming through. And and that's meeting a need. That's being relevant. So I think part of the reason why the church hasn't been effective is because of lack of relevancy. They haven't been able to address what the real needs are in the community, and they're not doing it, and they become irrelevant.
But you lost me. You said a couple of things. So you're saying the physical people aren't in the church, right?
Physically, some of the people aren't in. And so what I'm saying is,
but you can't train somebody who's not there.
Right. That's what I'm saying. And so, and the reason why they're not there is because of the lack of relevancy. A lot of times, if you're not relevant,
relevance. What do you mean by relevance? No.
Basically, are we about addressing issues that are in the now? Okay. Are we in about, like, say, for instance, like I mentioned, COVID, the COVID vaccine? Are we
okay? Let's go.
Are we as a church trying to, like, even set up the building to be a place for people to come and get tested? Are they coming, be able to come to our church to get the vaccine? All those different types of things. So that's, and what I'm saying is that opens us up to a group of people who would normally set foot in a building, set foot in a church, worship center, if you will, or have contact with people that are in ministry or whatnot. It really opens the door for that.
So, I'm hearing you say community outreach.
Yeah.
Well, I think I understand what he's trying to say, and when you sent us a note about this topic, the first thing I thought about is exactly what Terry's saying. I mean, if you just look on a given Sunday, most of the churches, you don't have very many people there, right? People are not coming to the building, right? So when you talk about training, you have people there that they're in and you can train, but if you just look at the number of, like you said, the number of churches versus like how many people are sitting in those pews, you just don't have that many people. And then on another side of it, it is the most depressing thing I've always heard, and I can't believe we accept this. And you hear everybody says like 20% of the church is supported by 20% of the membership, right? And that's financially, that's working, and that's stuff like that. And to me, I'm like, it's almost become accepted, right? And you see these churches looking to big congregations, knowing that, okay, I'm only going to get 20% true participation consistently from the staff, from the group, instead of saying, how do I get 100% from the people I have, right? How do I get everybody in there to be bought in fully in every way? And, so I think I understand what Terry's saying when you say relevance is the fact that people are just not coming to the church, for whatever reason. We talk about church hurt a while ago, stuff like that.
Well, okay. Now, right now, people aren't coming to the church. I get that, but what about 3 years ago? You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying what you guys are saying is wrong. I'm just asking because, people are going to ask this question to themselves. They're going to want to reach out because I think what you're saying is right, but that drives me to another point. And when I hear the two of you say that the people aren't here, and I'm talking about, I believe that we should be training up a new generation. Man, who is that new generation? That's our youth. And some churches, sometimes we lack a connection with the youth. Now, Jason, I know you can talk on this point because I think that sometimes what we do is we get so bogged down in tradition, right, that we forget that our youth, like kids, my kids at the age of 15 were different. They were exposed to different things than I was at the age of 15. So how can we engage our youth as well? I mean, I think that's part of the problem as well. I mean,
well, No, that's a huge problem. Like I said, I serve in the youth ministry, and one of the pastors, when I was serving, she gave me a really sad statistics. She says 80% of the kids who grow up in the church, I'm talking about consistently every week, as soon as they hit college, they stop going. And of those 80% that leave, only about 25% comes back, right? And to your point, it's like, what are we doing, in the church that we're not appealing to these kids? So when they leave, they're like, and my story is the same. I'm like a lot of people. I went to church because my mama made me, right? And, to keep mama off my back, to keep mama from yelling and screaming, to make sure I got my car every week, I showed up at church every Sunday, right? When I got to college and I had choices to make on Sunday, guess what? It wasn't even in my top 5 or 10. In my top 10, they weren't even in my top 10. I mean, I might have walked by the church to get to someplace else, to get to that party I'm going to, but it wasn't even in my top 10. And so when I serve in the youth ministry, I think it's important that, like you said, we got to get away from tradition, and we got to get away from. I mean, you got to meet the kids where they are, and these kids nowadays, they're about relationships. Right? They're about, talk to me about life. Yeah, this God thing is great, but you know what? I got these people picking on me at school today. How's that going to help me? How's this God thing going to help me? How are you going to meet me where I'm at? I'm struggling with my identity. I don't know who I am. I want to be a good Christian boy, but I see these boys out there, cussing and drinking, and they're getting all the girls, and they're getting all the accolades, and everybody's talking about them. So why would I want to? Why I want that? So why should I do this church thing? So it's so difficult, and it's a struggle. But I know for me, my biggest thing is this: anytime I get down with the kids, I don't even talk to them about the lesson. Because the beautiful thing about life will give you a biblical lesson. And when you talk to the kids about their life and what they're going through, sometimes you just take their lives and you just insert the biblical principles that they need to get past it. And now they're like, oh, could that be a real solution for my problem? I'm like, yeah, it can be. But yeah, you are right.
So let me throw this at you. So Jason, what you're saying is, I want to teach you, the youth. Okay, you're a youth. I'm going to teach you some biblical principles to apply to some of the struggles that you face, as opposed to what I'm suggesting. What we have been doing is I'm going to teach you about the Bible. In other words, I'm going to lecture you. I will attempt to ask a question or two, but I will not even try to understand where you're at, right? And that's the point I'm trying to make, is that a lot of the traditions we have in our churches, they're completely irrelevant to our youth today. They don't know. I know that a lot of the things that I heard in church, I was like, whatever, until I got to be 30, 35 years old. And all of a sudden, those things that they were telling me back when I was 14, 12, 10, all of a sudden they can come into focus now, because now I understand. My young, fragile mind could not understand it back then. And I think you're 100% right. Now, Pastor Terry, I know you taught youth for quite a while in your stead as you were coming up. What do you think?
I think Jason hit the nail right on the head. Because I remember back when I did do youth ministry, we were really talking about relevant things that was relevant to them, and like I said, and really, like take for instance the music thing, that's really important to them, and being able to help them to be able to learn that all music is not good music. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But the way to do that though is you got to allow yourself to go into their area, into their territory, and really hear their music and really hear them and try to figure out what are they listening to? Are they just listening to the beat? Are they paying attention to the lyrics? And during that whole time, I found out a lot of them weren't even paying attention to the lyrics. They were like, oh, it's got a dope beat. They just listen to the beat. Boom, 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 boom. They weren't paying attention to the lyrics. But the thing about it is, though, that lyric, though, even though they weren't paying attention to it, it was still sinking in some kind of way.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
You know what, Terry? That's a really interesting story. We did this thing at church, right? And about music, because we recognize how important music are to kids. And we told the kids, hey, send us your playlist of music that we can listen to. And it was funny because the pastor didn't have to say, oh, make sure it's church appropriate. So the kids got excited at first, but when we threw that church appropriate piece in, we got like 2 entries. And I'm like, and for me, it's like it's hard for me to teach a kid about music if, like you said, if I don't meet him where he's at. You know, I love
Jason,
listening to the same music the kids listen to.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Terry. When I did it, Jason, I said, give me what you got. I said, bring it. And they said, someone's got cuss words. I said, I don't care. I said, bring it in.
Right.
They bought in, and that's when I literally found out that one song, "Stand Back, You're Standing Kind of Close."
Yeah.
And they didn't realize what it meant.
Coming through.
I feel something coming through on you. Those kids were like, when I pointed it out, they were like, oh. I said, yeah. And so I wanted to hear and that put me in the place of relevance with them, because now we can come to Pastor Terry and we can talk about anything. He's not holding our music against us, and all that stuff. Literally, it opened the door for me.
But see, Terry, that is so important, because look what you just did. Like a lot of times, and this is what I tell the kids, I'm like, you don't know how that music impacts you. So I like to listen to their music with them. And then when they listen to it, I'm like, hey, what are you feeling right now? Man, I'm fired up. You're like, you ready to go out there and fight somebody? Yeah, let's go do it. I'm like, that's kind of the music you listen to. And you get them to start recognizing that stuff. And you like you said, you become relevant, because a lot of times, they'll listen to sad music and wonder why they're always feeling down. They will listen to that, some of their hardcore stuff, wonder why they're always angry. They listen to some with those sexually explicit lyrics, and they wonder why they always trying to find somebody, right? And if we shield them and we shield ourselves talking about, well, you can't bring that here, then how can we teach them? Right? How can I help you navigate the music you listen to unless I'm there with you, saying like, hey, look where this thing is taking you. So I applaud you for that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it really is. And what's funny is again, that served as a connection with the kids.
Yes.
I mean, how many teachers did you have in school where you just felt like they couldn't hear you, they couldn't feel you, they just weren't on the same planet as you, and then all of a sudden you went to that one class with the craziest, goofiest looking teacher, that teacher who seems to be an introvert and completely on Mars, and all of a sudden this teacher allows you to freely express yourself. And I think that's kind of, man, that's kind of where we're at in our church today. Now, I'm not saying let's pervert the church. I think that leads us to another point that I wanted, that I was thinking about. And for me, and again, keep in mind, I'm only in my own way looking at reasons. Why isn't our church more effective in our communities? And I think just like with the kids, we missed the mark, because check this out. Jason, you said this, and Terry, you also said this. Our faith doesn't always equate to how do I say it? Real life. How do I say it? When we read scriptures about marriage, like we might say, what do the scriptures say about marriages? And then we say, what do the scriptures say about economics? And the thing is this right here. When we say things this way, what is it that we're leaving out? Why Why can't we get beyond this? You know what I'm saying? We talk about, well, Jesus died and he rose again, but what we don't talk about is how how Jesus is death and resurrection, how it affects us in our everyday lives. You know what I'm saying? And I think we don't do a good job in our communities in explaining that. You know, explaining, okay, Jesus died for my sins, right? He died for my sins. And then he rose again. But what that got to do with what I'm going through today? Like what you were talking about, Jason, Terry, what you were talking about with the music. What does that have to do with what I'm going through today? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Am I losing to both of you?
No. It makes the most sense in the world.
You're right on it.
Because
I mean, it's our failure to make faith and life kind of come together and kind of intersect. You know?
Yeah.
It's our failure
to
make
faith
that.
And
it's our failure to do that.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Right.
Yeah. Fellas, y'all know what? Hey, I think Chris is on with us. I just got his text. Hey, Chris, you on with us?
Yeah, you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hello?
Hey, man, what's going on? It's been quite a while, man. How you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. I'm just listening to y'all, and the only thing that I'm really getting out of this is an understanding. You know, if you don't understand, then why even bother? And that's what it boils down to. If the kids don't understand, then how are you gonna teach them? They gotta understand what you're talking about, and it comes back to studying. If you don't study, you're not gonna understand.
Right, absolutely. That is a good point. You got to study. So let me ask you, Chris. I asked Terry and I asked Jason just a minute ago when we started the show, and the basic question was why isn't the black church more effective in our community? Why aren't we able to influence our community?
Well, like I said in the beginning, understanding. Once we as a people get the power, we don't care anymore. Caring and understanding goes together. We don't care. Well, I'm in this position. They need to listen to me because I'm the pastor. I'm the leader. But there's more to being a leader than just holding that position. If that makes
All right,
sense.
Speak on that.
And when I say that, sometimes you got to take a kid or a child by his hands. Come here and walk with me. Take him by his hands. Come walk with me and let me show you something. You know what I'm saying? Show him. Sometimes you can talk all day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Let's say when we was in school, as you say, well, I'm going to tell y'all this, and I want y'all to understand this. No, I need you to take me by my hand. You know what I'm saying? I can't look at that video and get an understanding. I need you to take me step by step, A, B, C, D, E. That's what I'm talking about. You got to take me through my ABCs. Like a little kid.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean, yeah.
I think Chris is making a point. I think that's one of the things you asked why we're not. I think for some reason, whether it's true or not, people feel like they're not needed in the church. And I always talk to my pastor about this, and especially in the youth group. And we do such a strong job of making sure that Sunday production goes off that people are like, well, they don't need me, right? And that's like the biggest fallacy and the biggest falsehood, But people don't feel like they're needed in the church, so they don't commit themselves to the church, So to Chris' point, it is important to make sure you feel like, hey, I may be the leader, I may be the pastor, but we're all needed because we're all part of the body. And bringing that all together and making people feel like they're part of it. Because I tell you, if you get people to get in there and start buying in, then you'll start seeing some relevance. Then you'll start seeing some numbers. Then you'll start seeing some influence. But I do the volunteer part of my church, and it's the hardest thing. I've got people who've been in the church 5, 6 years, ain't volunteered a day in their life. So for me, it's like, man,
Yeah.
you what are you missing now? Like, how do I get you to engage? And the first thing they always say is like, well, I don't think, I don't know if y'all need me for any place. I'm like, well, it's not about what we need. It's about, it's about how God can use you. So where do you want to be used at? That's the question. How do you see God using you in the ministry?
But Jason, can I say something to you though?
Yeah.
You said something that just really you probably didn't mean to say it the way you said it, but I'm gonna go ahead and say it. You said we do such a really good job with the production on a Sunday morning or whatever day they worship. And that's I believe that's what's making the church more irrelevant than anything. Is that we've become more production geared, the lights, the cameras, the dark room. We're appealing to, I get it, we're appealing to the nature of man, creating a concert venue. To get them.
Yeah, we talked about this the last couple of weeks.
Right. We talked
Go ahead.
And I get it. But when the rubber hits the road, is that really going to sustain them when they leave that building and hit by trouble and get hit by the truck? Is that really? Is that what's really is that going to be enough? Is that what's going to? Because honestly, I ran across a lot of people who go to the mega churches, and they don't have a relationship with nobody. They go in, they sit in the back, they get their little communion cup, they drink their communion. They go, they get their their 3 points. Their 3 points. They get their song, their 3 points from the pastor, and then before church is over, they out the door because they don't have no relationship with anybody there. And they've not been encouraged, to have a strong relationship with Christ. It's because because everything has become such a production.
So yeah. I talk. When you say that, it's funny because I equate that to what I call the visceral response. Right? We do such a great job creating that visceral response where it touches us in our emotions and our feelings, but it doesn't really touch our heart. And as soon as you get away from the church, like you just talked about, and now you're going through your week, all those lights and those things, they kind of fall to the wayside. And to your point, I think we do a strong job with the production, but it has to go deeper than that. It has to be about relationships. It's how do I get these people to start engaging in relationships, and really start to say like, hey, I want to be part of this, right? I want to, and these people got my back, and there's some people who love me and care about me, and I want to be part of this community now, So
it's funny what I heard. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but when the two of you talk about the production, and then you talk about touching on the feelings. Why is it so important in the church that we hit people on their feelings right before it's offering time? Why? See, like that. I'm gonna be honest with you. That has always disturbed me. We get the choir going up, and we get people right in their emotional state, and then we say, "Oh man, I'm glad y'all fired up." It's tithes and offering. See, please y'all check me if I'm way out in left field. But I think we do that. I think it's by design. I think somewhere, some way, somebody had that idea that if we do it here and we're touching their emotions, they're gonna give more. Y'all know how that is. We go out, we got this big paycheck, this thing that we wouldn't have ordinarily bought, we would not buy because we were sensible, but we are excited because we got this bonus and we can go buy this thing. We don't really need it. We like it. We know we'll enjoy it, but our rational mind would not allow us to go and make this purchase. But so I think that some of the things we do in the church, and it leads me to this statement, is I believe that that there's this thing called church hypocrisy, and I'm supposed to give, and I believe that God calls us to give out of our hearts, right? And I believe that the 10% is just a guideline, right? What I'm speaking of is, again, we're talking about why don't we have more influence. I think that people see certain things we do in the church as hypocrisy. Chris, you had something to say?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you a question. Do you do that? Do you make everybody feel good after the choir has been singing? Everybody is riled up and feeling good. Do you say, okay, now it's time for the offering? Do you do that? You got to ask yourself that first.
No.
You don't do that?
No.
Okay, but most of the churches do it. Now, here's my next statement.
I'm not accusing anybody of doing anything. I'm saying when it happens,
that's what they do.
I think it's by design.
Right. Most of the churches do that. And like I said, when I go online and I look at a lot of sermons that a lot of these pastors preach, they always, we're finna talk about the good news. Is that all y'all going to talk about? Y'all want to talk about the good news? Yeah. And there's nothing wrong
what is the good news
with that.
What is the good news?
Jesus dying for our sins and shedding the blood and you know what I'm saying? They want to talk about that. Jesus died for our sins, and you need to have faith that he's going to be, he's going to be the one to get you through your hard times, him and his Father.
All right.
But now let me flip it. Let's talk about the bad news. They don't want to talk about that.
Who doesn't want to talk about
where there's good news, there's always bad news, right? So as a church, we feel good. We feel good about hearing the good news. Oh, I'm good. I get it. Okay. But when we go out there and do wrong, we don't think about the bad that comes with it. And I think that is a big problem in the church. You know what I'm saying? We feel good about the good news.
Come on, elaborate.
No,
go ahead.
Yeah, and Sedric, I think to both of the points, I think it's you are right. I mean, a lot of churches go through a lot of research and just watching to say, how do I create that visceral response, right? How do I get you to engage in your emotions? Because I know once your emotion gets engaged, it may actually cause you to make a movement, right? But sometimes that movement isn't permanent. It's just temporary, and I think that's where I think that's where we have to find a way to I want you to move, but I don't want you to move because your feelings are there. I want you to move because you've had a transformation in your heart, and now you're operating from that capacity, right? You're not operating from a feeling. You're operating from a commitment, from a heart condition, and a change of heart that we need to go through. And so I understand why the churches do it, but the question is, how do you bridge that gap? Because a lot of times it stops there. It stops with that emotional piece.
Right, but again, I believe the way we bridge that is what's already been said. I'm just saying what I believe to be another reason why the black church is not as influential in the community. And to qualify my statement, what I was simply saying is this right here. It's just what you just said. I can get you up. I can get you emotionally charged, and you will give to the church. But check this out. You come to church, and you've been coming to church for 10, 20, 30 years, and your heart is far removed from the church. You come to church to sit in a pew to satisfy maybe a spouse or a family member. Maybe you do it for appearances. It doesn't matter. To me, when I say a hypocrisy, that is what a hypocrisy would be. I can give you a real world scenario here. I went to a church way back when, and we had a guy who owned several businesses throughout the city, right? And he would frequently come to church on Sundays, and he'd have a big wad of cash, and he would allow everybody to see him with an offering and with a tithing envelope, and you could see that envelope was thick. He put some bills in there, right? But check this out. This same guy wound up on the news because he was stealing I won't even say what it was. Somebody might know the man, but he was stealing some equipment from one business, taking it to his business, and selling it out the back door. You see what I'm saying? But yet he was in church, and he put on this front as if. And what did that do to the young kids in our church who saw that? What did that do? So when I'm talking about church hypocrisy, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not saying the church in itself is doing anything wrong. I'm going to tell you, I want you to feel good about your giving, right? I want you to feel good about your offering that you give. I want you to feel good about the tithe that you give to the church to keep the church going. But as the two of you aptly put it, and the way I'm taking what you guys are saying, is this right here. It has to be from the heart. Am I right?
Yes. Yes.
It
has to be.
And so I think for the church to be even more effective in our communities, right, to gain some ground, it's everything that we're talking about. And another of the things we have to do is we have to be about what we say we're about. Y'all hear me? Be about what we say we're about. And let's not play with this thing. You know, we have to. I think that's really, really, really important. I don't know any other way to put it. I mean, my vocabulary is limited. So another thing I see is what Chris was kind of hitting on a little bit. I think it was Chris. The whole mentality that, and I'm gonna put it in the way I heard it. The whole mentality that everything's gonna be all right. You know what I'm saying? Like, has anybody ever gone to church to talk to a leader in the church about a personal problem they were having, and that leader said, "Pray about it. Everything gonna be all right"? Has that happened to anybody here tonight?
Yeah.
How much more effective would a statement like that be with some real advice behind it, some real words behind it? Not just, Sedric, if you just go over into the book of Ephesians, or maybe the book of Collision, if you just go look at the book of Ephesians or the book of John, or better than that, go.
Jobs. He said jobs.
So, you know, how much more effective would it be if I gave you a real world talk?
Honestly, Cedric, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Cedric, I totally agree with what you're saying, because one of the things that everybody, like, take for instance, you know, when some people are in the hospital and they just want to know that their person's going to make it, you know, and you want you to pray a prayer of healing over them. But that may not be God's will at that moment. You know, it may not be God's will for that person. So, you know, I kind of got to this thing now where it's like, you know something, not my will, but thy will be done, God. I'm just trying to keep it straight with you, because it ain't about this pie in the sky. You know, this thing ain't going to be rosy all the time. It's going to have some valleys. You know, you're going to be walking through some dark places. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, period, you know. I mean, you're going to have some dark places. So it's going to be good. You're going to have your good moments. You're going to have your dark moments. Let's keep it real on that. But it's not going to be this whole pie in the sky mentality. You know, it's not going to be that. You know, it's this walk is has hills and valleys in it. Yeah. You know? Yeah. So
we're not so, man. Whew, I would not have told you. See, and it's the thing that sometimes when we are in the communities, when we're talking, I think people on the outside or people who are inside who are not engaged, I think these are, and again, these are not all objections. I mean, you guys have your own things or what you may think about why the black church is not as influential in the community as it could be. Because I'm gonna tell you now, I know one of the pastors here in our city who seems to be very influential. Man, I can tell you what, for every one person who says this pastor has done wonders for the community out in the West End, I can find 5 or 6 that completely say, no, he ain't. He just, and they tear him down. And I won't say any names. Pastor Terry, you know who I'm talking about. And they tear him down. But here's another problem I see, right? And I don't like to use the term crab mentality, but a lot of us we spend so much time assaulting each other, and the church itself. I'm gonna tell you, this leads me to another point. I think, or another reason I think that we don't have as much influence. And this is hard for me, and I'm an old man now, or getting there. I can't stand it that sometimes we're so passive. We're so passive about everything. Now, I'm not saying be a bull in a china shop, but I think that we can't always just be passive. And by passive, I mean this. By not being passive, I mean this. Dr. Martin Luther King was nonviolent, but he was not passive. Y'all hear me? Please mute your phones when you're not talking. But Dr. Martin Luther King was not a violent man, but he wasn't passive. He called out injustice where he saw it. Am I right? And so how do we how do we become a more effective force in our communities? And I think one of the ways is we can't sit on our hands. Like when the Black Lives Matter movement started, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I was like, I ain't sure about this. Yeah, they making this all about black and white. Man, this is not a good look. But after a couple of murders by police officers, after seeing the atrocities, after seeing the injustice, and that's another point I want to make, but after seeing all this stuff going on, I said this. I'm going to be honest. I said, I'm not for destruction of property. But Dad Burnett, we've been knocking on the door. We beat on the door. Now they're kicking the door in and smashing the windows on the way. You know what? I can't really be mad at these people. I can't be upset. I can call out an injustice. I can say, look, two wrongs don't make a right. But I can't be mad. And so I struggle with stuff like that. Because sometimes I think our churches are just way too passive with things that go on in our communities. Am I right? Am I wrong? Anybody got an opinion on that?
Well, I'll tell you, that's one of the things that a lot of people struggle with when they look at the church, and like you said, unfortunately, the view is if you're a church person, you're supposed to be passive, right? But it's not about being passive. If you look at the life of Christ, he was not a passive man. He spoke out when he needed to speak out. He did things. He didn't live a meek, passive life. He did take some stands in different areas, and I think there's a lot of people. What I see in a church are worried about. Oh well, I don't want them to think I'm doing this. I don't want them to think I'm doing that. And I'm like, man, if it's wrong, it's wrong. You call it out, right? That's what we do. Yeah. Right? If you love me as a brother, you need to come to Jason and say, Jason, man, you be dating too many of these women. You bring too many of these women to church. You need to sit your tail down because you love me, right? Not sit there and be like, man, somebody need to talk to Jason because I don't think he's doing this the right way, But those are the things that we have to stand up and do. Because I'll tell you, when I'm one of those people that I'm just gonna call it out. I'm like, man, you ain't right for that. And people are like, who are you to tell me that? Well, I'm like, I'm just your brother in Christ, and I just want you to know that I see that, and it's not about judgment. It's not about me trying to check you or put you in your place. It's because I love you, and I see that the decisions you're making are separating you from Christ. And if I didn't love you, I wouldn't. How can I sit there and say I love you and allow you to do it? I always tell my kids the same thing. I'm like, here's the deal. If you see somebody standing in the street and a bus is barreling down on them, are you just going to sit there and be like, well, I should say something to them, but I don't want to interfere or get in their business? No. If you love that person, you're going to scream. You're going to make that person know, like, hey, you're facing death is imminent, approaching you because of what your decision you make to stand there. And if we're really Christians and we really think that sin is a form of death, we should be taking that same level of assertiveness when we see sin, when we see injustice, especially with each other. So you are right. I think we are a little bit passive in the church, and we don't speak out on things, and we're so worried about offending people. And I'm like, well, sin's offensive. So I mean, if you really want to talk about what's
Yeah.
really offensive. So, but yeah, I agree with you there.
It's funny because I mean, I'm telling you, I thought about this for a little bit, but I tell you, I get sometimes I get, you know, I get the tough questions, you know, I get the tough questions, and this leads me to another point. I know we're gonna close out here in a few minutes, but feel free if anybody got something to say. I really want to hear what you have to say, but I also believe, and again, these are some of my points, and I think that somewhere in the Bible it says, and correct me if I'm wrong, that my people perish for lack of what?
Knowledge.
And my thing is lack of knowledge. And I thank you. I was waiting for somebody to add that last word. But check this out. I think another problem we have is, and I see some churches really do good with this. And the reason I'm specifically saying the black church, I got to put this out there. It's not to make the black church look bad. It's not to bash the black church. That's not what I'm doing. It's because I drove through a community and saw a whole bunch of churches in a black community that had black congregations. I didn't even look at the denomination, but I think part of our problem is vision or lack thereof, and I think that we don't do a good job of relaying to our people that there's something bigger at stake here, and it goes beyond Wednesday night Bible study and Sunday morning worship. It goes beyond that. So when I say that a lack of vision for where we're going to or how we're going to affect the community, I think that's really a problem. I think that's a problem that we have, not with all churches, because I can tell you there hasn't been a church that I personally have gone to, whether it be in Texas, whether it be in Kentucky, whether it be a worship service that I attended in Germany or the UK or wherever I've been in the world. We talk about going into the community. We may make some half-hearted attempts to get out in the community, which is fine. But the problem is vision. Once we get out into the community, now what? Once we get that membership that we wanted, now what? We don't have a vision beyond that moment. Does that make sense? And am I the only one who feels like that?
I get it. I get it. I mean, you gotta have the vision beyond the nose on your face. And you've got to be, but check this out. But that comes, it's not just one person. This comes with people that are in the congregation. Once everybody's caught on to the mission and the vision statement or whatever it is, and everybody brings something to the iceberg, if you will. Everybody brings their piece of ice to move it forward. Does that make sense? We've got to be willing to listen. We got to be willing to listen to those people as they come and say, okay, but understand some things that people bring. I remember Bishop Long saying this: listen to people, but also realize is that some people, they bring good stuff that's good for right then. Some people may be bringing something that may be good for later. So which means you got to be willing to say, okay, we can't do that right now, but let's keep that in mind for future, because here's what we got to do first. But let's put this down. Let's don't throw it away. But it's maybe something for the future, if that makes any sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense because like I'm reminded of a scripture, and I just pulled it up, and it's Matthew 5:13 through 15. It says this. It says, and this is the NIV, and it simply says this: "You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, and it gives light to everyone in the house. Terry, you said something that was great. I love it, and you know I love you, my brother. I do, but it is our, and when I say our, it is every member in the congregation. It is our responsibility. We need to carry that light. In other words, everybody, the vision. We always hear it. It's written in the Word. Make it plain, right? Write it down. Make it plain. And that's one thing I love about our church. Anywhere you walk in our church, you know what we stand for. The polo shirts we had made, you know what we stand for. We want to reclaim and restore people, right? Am I right, Pastor Terry? We want to do that. That's what we do. But that needs to show up in all of our actions. If it does not show up in all of our actions, and this is something that I believe that Pastor Terry is really good at, right? If it doesn't show up in all of our actions, because if you meet just Sedric, if you meet Sedric on a Sunday and my brain is where it's at, because I got a whole bunch of responsibilities, I got a lot of things I'm thinking about. I was told by one of our members that I thought you were the worst. I thought you were so rude. And then she took the time to get to know me. And she's like, but you're nothing like I thought. See, I play a role and I play a part, but I don't always do a good job. And God bless Pastor Terry's heart. He works with me on it. He shows me patience. But my thing is, we still have to have that vision. And that vision should be, everybody should be able to see it. Everybody in the church should be familiar with it. In my opinion, now that's my opinion. And not just know it in words, but in deed also. And that's just me, though. I mean, y'all can add whatever you want, but that's just me. And I mean, I have a few other things, And for me, they're big things. But I will say this. One of the problems, I'm going to go personal with this one, with our church. One of the problems I noticed with our church and our community, a lot of the people in the community where we are may not necessarily look like us. And we are hard pressed to show love to this community. And we do it day in, day out. And sometimes it feels to me like a losing battle. But because we have such a positive pastor, because the church leadership is so upbeat about this community. This is that thing about letting your light shine, that thing that you being the salt of the earth. But because they're so positive, I myself, am more apt to get up and get out in that community that makes me feel alienated. But at the same time, there are pockets of people in that community that need our church. And I tell y'all what, whenever there's a need, our church gets up and we try to meet the need. See, we want to become relevant in our community. We want people to know that we are there. We don't care if you don't like our church, our religion, I guess I'll say, our skin color, whatever it is you don't like about us. We don't want you to see that. What we want to show you is Jesus Christ. And I'm telling you, I believe, again, I'll say, starting at our pastor, the headship of our church, the visionary of the church, because he consults God, right? God gives him the vision, right? He casts the vision. He makes it plain. And we embrace that. We embrace that and we move forward. And so with that being said, we're about to get ready to close out. I want to see if anybody had anything else they wanted to add, or, if you have something, a point that you want to bring up, feel free. Chris, you there?
Yes, sir.
I know it's going to be prison. Anything else you want to add, sir?
Can you hear me?
Anything else you want to add? Yes, we can hear you fine.
Oh, okay. Yeah, all I wanted to say was that time waits for no one. You know, there's a timetable for everything. So when I say time, we have to take out the time because God has a timetable. Jesus Christ has a timetable for us. Why not take out the time and talk and teach these kids? Don't just tell them something. Say, well, hey, little Ray, read this right here. This is what God say. Teach them why God say. Explain to them why God said that. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's the biggest problem with the church. That's all I had to say.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chris. I appreciate it. Jason, you want to add anything to it?
No, I mean, I think, definitely we can see some time coming back to this topic because, you hit on something right there at the end about everybody, serving their part and having vision. And those two things, when you talk about influence and you talk about, how do you gain influence, those are some key things that's needed, So can definitely see us coming back to this topic.
Feel free to express yourself. Okay.
Oh, well, like I said before, when you hear like 20% of the people support the church, it's like, we need everybody. And I think we forget that. And I think it's interesting. I would tell you why the church lost some of its influence is because the church got too big, right? I see too many people walk into church and say, well, I'm going to give my money, I'm going to give my time, I'm going to show up here and support the church, and that's going to take care of my part of the Great Commission. But if you read the scripture, it didn't say, take your church and go out and make disciples. It says you, the individual. And when we acquiesce that authority and that power to, the entity that called the church, we really just kind of erode what God can do in His community and what Christ has called us to do. So it's I think it's a good point when you say that everybody needs to be part of the church, and I think that we need to, when you talk about vision, everybody needs to understand that it's not about building more churches. It's not about growing congregation. It's how do I grow the kingdom of Christ, and what is my individual role, not just within these four walls, the building of the church, but in the body of Christ, So I think once we start kind of capturing that, I think we can get some of that power back that we've lost.
You are definitely right in that. I'm telling you, because I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about the words you're uttering right now, and I'm just like, wow, you make a really, really good point. I just think I think people, like you said before, you and Terry both said it before, I'm gonna make it real simple. They feel some kind of way about things, and they don't get out. They don't feel included. They don't feel it's their responsibility. But we all have a part to play, like you just said. Terry, do you have anything you want to add to our conversation, sir?
No, I am actually good. I like the way Jason put it, and I think that is so appropriate. And I don't have nothing to add to that.
Nothing to add. Okay. Well, as I said before, this is a topic. As they say, I want to revisit this because I really want to give you the chance to just kind of think about it, and I challenge you to go out into your community, go out into your communities and see what's really going on. I mean, from any perspective you want, because I remember growing up in South Dallas, there's systemic injustices all over the place. I don't care what black community you go to, and these injustices, please don't think I'm saying we're being held back by the man. I'm saying that these systemic injustices that we face have been handed down through the years. Man, don't get me started. I'm not going to go deep on it, but they have been handed down through the years. And what I'm talking about is a decision that was made in 1950, right? And then another decision that was made in the 1960s, and then another decision was made in the 70s, and then the 80s, and whatever, so on and so forth, and no changes occurred, and we did not do what we were supposed to do. We had land, and the city said we're going to build a freeway over here, and we lost that land. Whatever happened, we just go out. I'm just inviting you, go out and be objective when you look at your community, and when you think about why isn't this black church affecting the change in the community that it needs. And well, again, some of the things I'm talking about, I'm talking about a lot of times we focus on crime. I'm not just talking about crime. Why don't we have any viable, why do we have food deserts in our community, right? If that's a problem. Why do we have food deserts? And for anybody who doesn't know what that means, why don't we have grocery stores that we have easy access to? Why do we have to catch a bus to another part of town to go to a grocery store that has what we need? Because the grocery store that's in our community, here it is, the prices are 10% higher than the grocery store 20 blocks away. Why? So things like that. Go out. I invite you. Go out in your community. Have a look. Get involved in your local church. Get involved in any ministry you like. Get involved with the community. If it means being on the city council, get involved. Let's do this. Let's correct this, and let's bond with each other, and let's grow together. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and close out our show, and I just want to say again, y'all know what we do about this time, because I love this. This is every day of my life. I have to wake up, and I have to tell me this. I tell myself this, and I say, Sedric, go out, find something you love, embrace it, and chase it. And for that day, that is your relentless pursuit. Thank everybody for showing up with us tonight. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Chris, for all your input. But I'm telling you, this conversation can't just be a conversation. We need to move on it, and we need to start making differences in the lives of our young people. And when we're in our church, again, the church is in us as individuals. Let's let everybody see that light shine. Let us be the salt of the earth. With that being said, Sister Kim, if you would, go ahead and take us out. Thank you, guys. We love you, and we'll see you again this time next week. Thank you. Have a good evening.